Hi, all of you wonderful sellers out there. Welcome back to another episode of SellerSpeak, where we learn from real sellers and when they tell their real stories. We have John Elder with us today, and he sold his business for mid-seven figures. So I think that's something really amazing. So let's get into the session after this quick intro. All right, welcome back. So we have John Elder with us here today. Hi, John.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. I think selling your Amazon FBA business is something that many people don't talk about. And I was surprised because I went on the internet and I'm like, let me look it up. So I have some content for this video. And I realized that there is not many videos. And I'm just like, but it is so important because that's the end of your journey, right? So people talk about how to start your Amazon journey, how you can make your Amazon journey more meaningful. But what about what do you do in the end? What's the right way? That's why we have you right here. So if you can just talk about your journey a little bit with us, where you started from, and then we can jump right into the session.
Yeah, definitely. So my story is kind of unique. I graduated from University of Washington with a degree in construction management. I honestly thought I was going to do that the rest of my life. It was just something I was really good at. I was working on high profile projects in San Diego. Specifically the San Diego airport. And so, I'm doing work that is really fruitful. It's satisfying. It's fantastic. It's a great career. But the thing missing was the income. So income was also actually really good, and I shouldn't complain, but I wanted to rise the ranks faster. And so to do that in the construction world, you have to, basically put in your 20 years of time and work up, the ladder. So I didn't want to wait around that long. So I started researching, different ideas on the internet, thinking about different ways that I could, build a business, something for myself, a way to, just provide side income for myself. And Amazon FBA came up, and this was 2014 when I was doing all this research, and it wasn't, the gold rush that it is now, but back then there was definitely people writing about it saying, this is a great opportunity. It's really great for people who like to spend time with family. So I have a wife and one son, and we love the flexibility of the Amazon world. And so it really interested me. So I got in with my first product in 2014. I had about $5,000 of my own cash and invested that, and then just kept reinvesting, my profits back into the business, and then really just really methodically grew the business one product at a time. On that first golfing product, my factory was actually the same factory that supplies for the PGA Tour. So that was, it just kind of reminded me of, how small the world is and how interconnected the factories are. And, that became, the number one seller in a golfing category. So, that led, I think having that first success definitely led to let's just reinvest and spend a lot more time on this. So I worked at my job for 2 years and, did both Amazon and my, career. And then, started thinking about exiting in probably 2017. And why that happened was, I was definitely kind of like at a peak in my business, and I was getting really close to my initial goal number. So a lot of people ask, how did you know like how to exit? What was like the secret recipe? Well, for me, I had a number. It was a mid-7-figure number on a vision board. And so from day one of starting my business, I had plans to exit someday. So everything I did was kind of guided towards that end goal. Ended up exiting, successfully. Found a fantastic buyer, used a top broker who specializes in e-commerce sales. So it really ended up being a dream in the sense of I achieved, my vision board. So it's a really cool story, one where really, started out with just a little bit of an investment and then grew the business slowly. And I will tell you this, and I don't know for anyone listening, I didn't take any money out, and probably in the first almost up to 2 years. And so I'm constantly reinvesting, and you have to do that to grow your business quickly. and I wanted to, reach my goal in 5 years. And that was part of the success, was I wasn't taking any money out. So any dollar of profit I got, from sales went directly right into expanding my product lines, doing larger purchase orders for Christmas sales. So it was all with that long-term vision in mind, that I had, that made it successful.
Wow. No, that is amazing, because we have a saying in SellerApp that Amazon is a gambling game. Like, it's like a casino. So not everyone who puts in money will get return, and you might even occur a lot of losses. So for all of you watching out there, I think this session is very important, because I think it's going to give you clarity on how you can not lose money. And if you're just starting your Amazon business, this is the right steps that you can take to ensure that you are able to sell your business at a huge profit. Yeah. So let's begin with the session. Thank you for that inspiring story, John. So to begin with the goal of selling your Amazon FBA business, what are the basic things that people should consider from day one?
Okay, so there's a couple things that people do wrong, and one is to have, a bunch of seller accounts. So when a buyer is looking at your business, they're looking at one cohesive, just think about just one ecosystem, one just easy reporting. And so setting up your Amazon seller account as, that's it. Don't have a bunch of other seller accounts. Have all your brands, everything you do with your products, have it under one seller account. That's going to make things really easy for reporting. It's also going to make a buyer more comfortable, because the buyer is going to ask you questions like, hey, did you ever get suspended? And so a lot of people that have multiple Amazon accounts is because they got suspended and they shifted all their products over to the other account. So from day one, I had one seller account that worked really well for, the buyer. The buyer wanted to see that, I had a strong record on that account. And that's something else to consider too, is, you're going to have, the more sales you have on one account, the more lending you're going to get from Amazon. So that's a huge benefit, because the lending through Amazon is a complete, it's a complete steal in terms of money and interest compared to big banks. So you want everything to be on there. You want as many sales to be on there on that one account as possible. The other thing too is to set up your LLC from day one. So you want everything separate. A lot of people commingle, personal expenses with business expenses, and that's an absolute nightmare, because when it comes to, doing taxes and doing your, business, profit loss statements and things like that, that turns into just a cluster bomb. So what you want to do is keep everything separate from day one. So that's as simple as opening a business checking account, business credit card, and having an LLC in your state. So for here in Texas, that's an easy, I think it was maybe $200. You file your LLC, and that, protects your business and also keeps it under the umbrella of the LLC. Because when you sell a business, you're actually not selling your business entity. And a lot of people get confused by that. There's two things that happen. 99% of the time, you're doing an asset sale. So what that means is the buyer is buying all your listings. They're buying their inventory, but they're not going to be buying your LLC. So I kept my business entity because there's things like taxes and sales taxes and tax history that are tied to that. So a buyer does not want the liability of those taxes, and so that's why it's really important to do that, because it's really easy. You just basically peel off the LLC and you give everything related to your Amazon account over to a buyer, and then it's just a really, really clean process that way.
Yeah, because LLC is something that most of us sellers come asking us doubts about too. So the value of the company goes up if it's registered with LLC. I mean, we've already established that. So when the taxes are paid and salaries are paid on time and reports are given regularly, that means that you are doing good as a business. That's why I think you should consider LLC. So coming to LLC again, how do you properly set up your LLC?
There's different ways to do it. So you just, you register LLC with your state. That's, as simple as filling out the form and, deciding on your business address. LLC, the real power of it is that it protects you and shields you from potential liability. So if you were running your business and let's say you sold like a sporting good product and it injured somebody, the customer could come after you and go after your business assets. So they wouldn't be able to sue you for, your house, for example. So your house is a personal asset outside of the LLC. So it's kind of like an umbrella. Any asset in your business under the umbrella of the LLC, they can go after. So it gives you some liability protection. I did an S corp, and a lot of people do this from the beginning. It just gives you a little bit of strategic tax, strategy. What it does is you're paying yourself a salary, and you're paying employees salaries, and then you're also, running payroll. And so, payroll includes things like Social Security tax, Medicare tax, things like that. And what that does is it automatically takes out some of those taxes throughout the year, so you don't have this huge tax liability, tax day. So it was a really good, structure for myself and my business. I was able to get a car lease as well through it, so you can run everything through your LLC. So that's kind of fun for people to do. And then I also had an office space. So all of those things are run through the LLC, and they're written off, on your taxes as expenses.
Yeah, and I think that's a very safe way to go as well. So for our next question, most of the sellers are recommended to sell their products globally, because Amazon is, I think, a very convenient way to make sure that your products are reaching in a lot of different geographical locations. So if a seller wants to sell the products globally, should the company be also registered globally? Like, how does the process go on about that?
Yeah. So I actually sold in Japan, Europe, Canada, Mexico, and Australia. And you actually don't have to be registered there specifically. It's more of a tax issue. So you almost every seller I know will do this. You set up your VAT tax third-party company, and they actually manage your taxes for those countries. So some countries like the UK, whenever you make sales, because you don't live in the UK, you have to pay kind of like a foreigner's tax for doing business in their country. So that's the thing that you have to kind of manage a little bit. But there's companies that take care of that for you. But I never registered my business in other countries. It was all through the VAT system. And I think the VAT maybe is like an indirect way of, registering, because, the UK understood that I was an entity selling in their country. But it's really minimal compared to, all the registration you do in the United States.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. And I think there are two ways to go about VAT. So when you're registering with like their local authorities, when you're selling in the country, it might be just a little bit cheaper for you. You don't have to pay taxes, especially when it comes to UK for the first 6 months, if I'm not wrong. So you might want to look into that if you're planning to sell your products in different global or geographical locations. So now we're coming to talking about products that sell on Amazon. So for people who are using our product research tool, know what is selling and not selling on Amazon. But for people who are not using SellerApp's product research tool, go check it out. It's free. So for people who are not using our tool, what, according to you, is a product that guarantees sells on Amazon?
Oh, that is $1 million question. The issue with the brand image is huge. And so that's, we're probably in my top 5 things to talk about today. Whatever brand you're going with, long gone are the days where, you sold a bunch of random products on Amazon. Those days are long gone. So now it's all about brand image. It's all about telling the story of, how is your product going to make, someone's life better or higher quality of life. And so you have to do that through brand awareness, and you have to do that through imagery and video production. And just so many sellers are just sophisticated now. So you have to do these things to compete. So in terms of products, I think just sticking to some basic fundamentals always kept me out of trouble. And now, obviously, I stayed with my fundamentals that I told my clients and share with people. But it's still not 100%. So I probably had an 80% success rate on products, which is, pretty good for the Amazon industry. But even though everything went through, kind of like a funnel, and I screened out, which products were bad, some of my good products that I thought were going to be all-stars ended up not being all-stars for different reasons. So, one of the top things to do is always look at your net profit. So never pursue a product that has a really slim margin. And the reason why is because, inevitably you're going to have a lot of sellers that get onto Amazon and start undercutting your price. And so you need to have some margin there to, for the ability to lower your price someday. So I always tell people, look at 25% net profit. That's, after COGS, that's after all your PPC, average expenses. And so you have to do a lot of math on each individual product. And so I always tell people math is king, because you have to do the math. Otherwise you're flying blind in your business and you have no idea, how successful your product is. And so at 25% or higher net profit was always my goal, for product launches. So, sometimes I would lower it a little bit to stay, in competition with other people, but realistically, you should always make it your goal to be the premium product in your category. So, you want to kind of pitch yourself as the higher priced listing. Let's say there's 10 sellers. You want to be in the top 2 in terms of price. And so, you have to justify that a little bit with quality. You have to justify that with maybe you have accessory items, your design is the best, your customer service is the best. Pretty much everything related to your business has to be A+. And, that will show up in the reviews, and over time you do earn it, but you definitely have to work at that. And see, another thing too is, the price point of a product. I feel like the higher price products, you have less competition, and then sticking in kind of like a mid-volume sales. So I actually never pursued products that were over $50,000 in revenue per month. And so I did that strategically. A lot of people do kind of like have the risk tolerance to go into kind of like the $150,000 a month revenue type products. But for me, I kind of like stayed, below the $50,000 to stay out of trouble. So I didn't want to deal with a million hijackers. I never wanted to deal with, people, messing up my keywords in the back end of my listing. So those are all things, people have to think about. And so it allowed me to fly under the radar and build a really successful business.
Yeah, very good advice. And I always tell people to be their own accountant, because even if you have an accountant of your own, it's very important for you to understand how your business is working, because accountant just crunches your numbers. So it's you who makes the decision. So what I follow is a 7 multiplier model. So if you're buying a product, let's say at X price, and if you cannot sell it for 7X, that's the 7 multiplier model. That means you have to start looking for a new product that can get you like a 7X multiplier profit. If not, 5X also works, but I wouldn't go below 5X, because you need to give yourself a salary as well.
Yeah.
So now that we're coming to A+ branded content, and you have to start thinking about branding, as John said, from day one.
Yeah.
So we have video production. We have you can enhance your product listing with images and videos now. So how does A+ content help with your to help sell your business specifically? And like, what should people keep in mind when they're branding their products?
Yeah. I think what's changed is, the type of tasks that you do from day one now with Amazon businesses. Now, when I talk to people, I'm literally saying you need to do a short video production for your 7th picture, and you need to do your A+ content. And if people don't know what A+, it takes over the I call it the kind of like the description section of your listing. So it replaces it with enhanced images, and kind of like just gives the customer a different way to kind of learn about your product and the different features that you wouldn't be able to do in your listing pictures. And then you can also tell a little bit about your story. You can talk about your mission statement. Some companies end up talking about different charities that they work with, like, a percentage of their sales goes to, to like a charity for like hunger for kids. And those are really effective ways to kind of share that, it's bigger than just a business and making money. You're actually doing something with the money. And so the A+ content is where that is. And it's a really powerful tool. And then buyers specifically like it. They like to see it because they want to know that they're taking over a business where they have loyal customer support. And, they don't want to have to, do a bunch of video production and do a bunch of A+ content, to get it to that level. They're looking to buy a business that is already there, and they can take it and then maybe tweak it a little bit over time, but they want an established brand presence, and A+ content is, all part of that.
Yeah, we had a really nice video with Emma Shermer-Thamir about A+ content and how you can brand your business. So she talks about the basics from day one to the end of your Amazon journey. It will be linked in the description below, or it will be there several on the screen. Go look it up and you can get started for your Amazon business, branding specifically. Now we're coming to variation products. So I understand that if a buyer wants to buy your Amazon FBA business, they would be happy to see a nice spread of, variations with your products. So do you suggest that there should be a healthy split between revenue when it comes to variation products, or how does one go about splitting the revenue between variation products?
Yeah, realistically, you're just growing your variations on a listing. And, let's say you start with a, home run product listing and you only have one color. Okay. And that's great. So you have a successful listing, everything's great. And then you add, maybe a blue and a red and a pink and a yellow, and, you add all these different colors. So what that's going to do, it's going to increase the revenue on your listing, but it's also going to start naturally splitting your listing up into different revenue spreads. And so that is a really powerful way to actually increase and grow your business. And then buyers, what they want to see is they want to see that, customers are going to, the different variations, not like perfectly even, but they want to see pretty much no more than 25%. They don't want to see like one listing out of your entire brand is bringing like 30, 40%. They want to kind of see, smaller chunks across your brand. And so when I say, let me explain it this way. Let's say you have a brand and you have, 10 products. So you have 10 listings. They don't want to see one listing is soaking up, 50% of your revenue. And the reason why is because that's risky for them as a buyer, because let's say that listing gets suspended. Well, what do you do now? You just lost 50% of your revenue. So they want to see that revenue spread out, decently even, but it's really about lowering the risk from a buyer's perspective, and that's something that you have to think about. When I was building my business, I didn't really think about that per se. It just kind of naturally happened because every single listing I had variations, and so. Some were all-star listings, but I didn't have anything crazy like 50% of my revenue from one listing. I think that would probably happen if you had one all-star listing and then you had like 10 just terrible listings. So all my listings had, beautiful pictures, beautiful content. So every product I launched had a goal of being successful. And I think that kind of helped, naturally have that spread of revenue over my brands.
Yeah, that's very important as well. So now we're coming to a very important topic when it comes to maintaining your Amazon FBA business. So what is the best way to approach your monthly bookkeeping and financial reports? Because I have seen so many sellers do it wrong. So what, according to you, is the best approach?
To be honest, this is a funny question because I always outsource this to my CPA. So yeah. I always wanted to see, so what I would do, I set this up with my CPA. I wanted to see my profit loss statement every single month. And so that, gives you just a snapshot of how successful your business is in that moment in time. It tells me a little bit about my cash flow and, my cash availability. And then he would do my, yearly, business reporting and taxes and all that stuff. But honestly, I handed that off pretty quickly to CPAs, just because there's so many moving elements in the business that I wanted to really focus on, product innovation and in growing my business.
Yeah, no, that's a really good option. But again, you have to understand what the numbers are and what you're doing in your Amazon business. So do check out the video that's linked in our description below. It was a session with Amy Wee, where she will help you understand all your numbers and how you can reduce your cost as well. Be your own accountant, people. I mean, do outsource it, but understand your numbers.
Yeah, and it's probably good to mention that I did use a software called Cash Cow Pro. So that is, and I've talked to so many people that don't use it, and they're like, well, that tool exists. I'm like, yes, it exists. So that gives you a real-time view into your net profit of all of your products. And so it gives you all your sales data on a really just beautiful platform. It's an awesome experience. It's actually kind of makes the numbers of your business kind of fun, just because it's just a great tool. And yeah, I mean, you can look at your sales history for the last month, for multiple months, for the last day, and you could see pretty quickly what your net profit is that day. So if you have like strange issues, like you start seeing your net profit go down on a product, you can start investigating what's causing that. It could be like skyrocketing PPC. It could be an issue with storage costs. That's something that happened all the time. Some of my products would be scanned in, and all of a sudden Cash Cow Pro would tell me, hey, your net profit went down drastically. And the reason why that happened was when my product came in, Amazon just decided to accidentally mess up the dimensions on the scan with my inbound shipment. So then you have to open up a ticket and get that adjusted correctly. And so you say, I want my product remeasured. And then it gets fixed. But software programs like that really help for maintaining, net profits and things like that.
Yep. And for the next question, we have two schools of thought, because I've spoken to a lot of people who say that, AI, so this question is about AI and if you should use AI or outsource your product. So the two schools of thoughts being, human touch cannot be replaced by AI, get more employment, or we have AI do your work, because it can get much cheaper to use an artificial intelligence rather than outsourcing workers for your business. So what, according to you, should Amazon seller do? Should they outsource their work, or should they use AI?
It depends. So honestly, most of my outsourced work was to actual, human beings and agencies. So for example, I used a PPC agency who had a huge team of human beings, and they managed my PPC down to the hour. So they're constantly editing and tweaking things. Now they did use software to kind of help them, but they actually by hand were adjusting my PPC campaigns. Also hired a third-party marketing company that did 100% manual ads on Facebook and Instagram for my Shopify websites. So that was really effective. And then I guess AI, the AI software that I used, I guess you can consider Cash Cow Pro as AI, and then using a software like SentryKit to monitor all your listings. So what's great about that is you don't have to have an employee go into each listing every morning and go like, oh, yep, I need to go check everything. So the software actually will, send you an email to let you know, hey, there's a hijacker on your listing, or hey, Amazon suddenly removed all your pictures for no apparent reason. And so that software, which is called SentryKit, is just a great tool for sellers out there.
So it's all about having a perfect balance between those two.
Yeah, so for myself and my business, it was definitely about the balance, because I honestly, to this day, I do not trust AI for PPC. I want, real experts, actually looking at my stuff. They're the ones that have relationships with people on Amazon. And, I trust those relationships, and, getting ahead of the ball or ahead of the curve for, algorithm changes.
No, I agree with that too, because I don't think I can trust the relationship that I have built with an AI, but I can trust the relationship that I have built with an actual human. So I completely agree with that. So now we're coming to a section that is specifically for you all. So we had a poll on our social media pages regarding the questions to be asked in this session. You asked the questions, and John here is going to answer them. So the first question being, what is a hidden FBA account, and why do sellers go for it?
So a lot of people will have a, second or third Amazon account. They might want to split off, some of their brands to, I don't want to call it a hidden account because really nothing's hidden from Amazon. So Amazon knows, they approve your account. So some sellers will do this to kind of spread out risk. So some will, use a VPN to work both accounts from home. And they'll be able to, put one brand on this account and a couple of brands on that account. And so they do that for, you're spreading around the risk, because if you have an account suspended, you can actually, shuttle over all of the brands and the SKUs to the other account. I was never too paranoid about that, just because I was following the terms of service, and I was a very white hat type seller. And so whatever Amazon's rule was, I followed. It's some people who, they're kind of dive into the gray hat and the black hat stuff. That's where, they get a little paranoid and they want to have a, a second account or a third account. You just have to be really careful with that, because Amazon does track IP addresses. And if they see any funny business, they're just going to automatically suspend your account. And so I've seen that happen to sellers. And I'm always recommending to people, just open up one account. If you have a business justification for a second account or a secret account, then do it. But you're going to have a really good reason, because Amazon, especially in the last 12 months, has really cracked down on second and third seller accounts.
Yeah. And coming to the next question, in my personal experience, I've seen bigger corporates spend almost 30% of their revenue on payrolls. So how does one not overspend on payrolls?
I think just focusing on the end goal. And for me, it was exiting someday. So, not paying yourself that much money, finding, employees that are at a good deal. And for me, it wasn't actually a good deal in the sense of I hired an American employee with full packet, full benefits package, and did payroll, and also had a very healthy salary for that employee. Now that was a friend, so that was a little different. It was a local friend, but I just think that for yourself, to not think about your business. This is for someone who's exiting, to not think about your business as, I want to make $150,000 a year. If you are really, truly trying to exit someday, you need to think about every ounce of profit you can put back into your business. And there's books written about this. And if you are, focused on, selling for millions of dollars someday, you're going to have to, sacrifice a little bit to get there. And some people, end up paying themselves too much and then get into a financial position of, they might, go bankrupt. So, when you're trying to exit, you want to pay yourself very little, and, utilize that to, increase your bottom line for your business and to grow your brands.
Yeah, that's very important. I like the way you said that, focus on the end goal. Do not get lost in the middle, because if you set your end goal, I think it's easier for you to streamline through your whole Amazon journey as well. So coming to the last question from you sellers. So in my personal experience, I've seen sellers sell their products at a very cheap rate to undercut and eliminate competition. So I think we were speaking about this before as well. So what is important to you in an Amazon journey could be either to make profit or to eliminate your competition. The best example for this could be, I don't know if any of you have watched The Office, the show Office. So Michael Scott did the same thing with his company. He sold his paper at such a low price to eliminate all the competition. He did not make any profit at all, but there were no competition left. So what, according to you, should a person or a seller concentrate on? Competition or to earning money?
Oh, definitely just making money, because the problem with competing with the sellers that undercut you is that almost all of them end up going bankrupt and disappear. Some of them are from overseas, and so they can do, the lower prices. So for example, I had some Chinese factories that actually, they started their own Amazon business, and they were shipping from their factory to Amazon warehouses in America and undercutting me on pricing. So some of that stuff can happen but it's always going to come up in different unique ways. So some of the customer service is going to be really poor. It's going to come up in the copywriting on the listing. It's going to come up in the pictures. Typically the pictures are going to be like, just things won't look right in the photography. You know, a lot of people, you know, they think they're making quick money, but then they're actually negative and go bankrupt. So as a seller, your job is not to compete with those guys. They're always going to come and go, just constantly. Your job as a seller is to be in the top 3 or top 5 sellers of that product, and to be the premium product, and to deliver that brand message, because a lot of those companies don't have a brand message. They're just selling a really cheap product. So for example, I had a outdoor kids products line, and the thing that made my brand unique was, you know, just professional video production and photography, and just a really strong social media presence, and delivering on the brand message of, you know, getting kids to, you know, rediscover the great outdoors. So, you know, that allowed me to keep my premium price. And so some guys came in at, you know, $50 when I'm selling my product at $90. And, you know, yeah, they probably, you know, took some of my sales, but my business just continued to grow because customers were coming to, you know, Amazon and noticing, oh, wow, he's put a lot of effort into his quality, you know, so I used higher end materials for my products. I had way better pictures, and I had the most reviews because, you know, I've been selling for, you know, a few years. So customers in Amazon are very smart. And so they're not just like buying, you know, they're not all going to go over to a cheaper listing just because. If there is a legitimate leader in a category, they're going to go with that listing. And, you know, I do that myself. My wife does this too. We, you know, shop for products on Amazon, and we're going to go with the trusted brand that has a presence. And we're going to go with, you know, probably brands that we've purchased from before. Just because there's a random company at 50% lower price does not mean I'm going to buy from them, because, you know, it's a different company entity. You know, the quality might not be there. So I think people do think about these things, and just maintaining your presence as the premium product is key. Basically, you know, don't try to compete with their pricing, because you're never going to win with that strategy, because, you know, you're putting a lot of effort into your photography and your video production. So, you know, you've invested money into those things. So, you know, continue to be the premium company in your category and kind of ignore some of the noise.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I would suggest the same thing as well. For me, money is more important than eliminating competition, because I think it's too much of a risk. Like, what if you don't succeed? And we know that few countries can produce almost the same quality of products at a cheaper rate. So I wouldn't suggest bidding this way. All right. So coming to the next question, what are the most common mistakes that you have seen Amazon sellers make when they're trying to sell their Amazon FBA business?
Easily the number one mistake is you sign a contract with a buyer and everything's great. You know, you've negotiated the price. There's going to be a 3 to 5 month process going forward. So sellers sometimes kind of slow down on their growth in their business, and they're kind of like, oh, like I have an agreement signed, everything's great, and I'm gonna, you know, stop launching products. I'm gonna stop growing my business, and then their business takes a nosedive. And so what happens is the bank financing pulls out of the deal, and then the buyer pulls out of the deal, because now they're like, wow, that tells me a lot about the seller. You know, they kind of ditch their business. And so that kills deals all the time. So it's hard as a seller to do this, but you have to continue to launch products. You have to continue to grow your business. And yeah, some of that growth you're handing over for free pretty much to the buyer, because, you know, your multiple is based on the previous tax year. So, you know, there's a little heartburn there, but that's just part of the business world. That's also part of the risk that, you know, you give that risk to the buyer, and the buyer, you know, gets the benefit of, you know, what you did, because, you know, they're spending millions and millions of dollars to buy your business. So that's just, you know, part of it, you know, so you have to stay focused. during the exit, because there's a lot of documents and financial updates that banks are going to ask you for. So that's easily the number one thing that the number one mistake that I see.
Yeah, and I think I was not aware of the process as well. So thank you for letting me know. If I was selling my Amazon business, I would have easily made the mistake that you have just told me. So look out for that mistake, sellers. All right. So this is kind of a rhetorical question that I want to ask you. So if you were to start your Amazon business again from scratch and you only had $1,000 on your name, how would you do it and what would you do differently?
I would probably tap into some credit from the very beginning and kind of inject capital. There's a million different ways to do that. You could do like small bank lending. You could do local banks in your community. Some people tap into their home equity loans and things like that. You obviously don't want to extend yourself on your mortgage, but there's different creative ways to tap some capital, even if it's like $10,000 to help you. So if I had $1,000 that if I didn't have availability for capital, probably start with a small product and just be extremely diligent with the math and making sure the net profit was there. And with a budget that small, that's really, really tough. I always tell people, have 5,000, between 5 and 10,000 to invest. So $1,000 would, definitely prevent you from doing, the expensive video production and pictures and things like that. So, you would have to do your own pictures. And, that's something that you can do from the very beginning. Just, cameras at home are actually so powerful now that you can do that. And then just sourcing just a small little test order. So when I first started, my golfing product was, $1 a unit, and I sourced it for $250. So I did a 250 unit order and, tested the market. And, once I got all the money from that, I reinvested, into the business. So it's definitely doable, but in terms of, competing out there now, you have to do fantastic pictures and you have to do video production and A+ content. So I definitely recommend to get more than 1,000, just try to find those different ways to get capital from different banks and things like that.
Yeah, because I'm sure that a lot of things has changed from where you started from, and now that Amazon platform has changed. So I'm sure when you started your Amazon business, we didn't have, let's say, videos for your listing. So and there are rumors in the sky that Amazon is coming up with 4 new strategies for your 4 new types of advertisements. So look out for that next month, and we'll see how it is, and then we'll come up with strategies according to that. All right, so I think there's no better way to end this session than to ask you, let's talk about the other side of the coin. So if you were to buy an Amazon business, what things you should look out for?
So when I sold my business, I was extremely transparent. I think you should be extremely careful if the seller of a business is withholding information or kind of fighting you on, seeing reports. So for example, during the process, there's a phase called due diligence, where a due diligence officer is actually hired by a buyer of the business, and he will actually go and dig into every single report on Amazon. And so, you're required to provide read-only access to that. And, they crunch all the numbers, and they're basically making sure that everything lines up with what you've said in phone interviews and things like that. But if there was any hesitation on the seller, or delays in getting reports, or some reports maybe look like they were edited or something, I would be extremely cautious with that, because a strong buyer is going to, a strong seller is going to, have strong reports and is not going to have hesitation. And so even down to my tax returns, like, go ahead, look at my tax returns. So that's the number one thing to look for is, as a buyer, looking for a business that has an owner who, is really transparent in the process. And then also, you're going to be working with this person for a year. So like, for example, for my exit, I'm actually still working with the buyer of my business for ongoing training. So the personalities, should have a good match. Otherwise, it's going to be a very painful 12 months. So, you find that out through phone interviews and emails, just kind of like how they work, as long as, you're getting along, then that's a really, really great sign. But if you already, have a combative seller, that might come up in training. And so you just don't want to run into that. You want to buy from a company that is willing to, stick with the seller wants to stick with the buyer, and to work together for that 12-month period for training to make sure their business handover is successful.
Very important again. And I think this is where the trust with LCC comes into picture. So I think if I was a buyer looking to buy Amazon businesses, I would definitely consider the first parameter to be, that they're LLC registered. So do look out for that. Thank you. I think this was a very informative session. This is everything that you need to know about selling your Amazon business. If we have missed out on something, do link the question below, do comment the question below, and we will get back to you immediately. I would like to take this moment to thank you, John. And if you would like to add anything now, you can add that right now.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was an honor to come on here and to share my story. I had a kind of a transition period when I sold my business. I kind of had a light bulb moment of, what do I do next? And so I actually started consulting FBA sellers. And I just have gotten so tired of seeing, the Lamborghini guys on YouTube and Facebook, that I wanted to, provide an honest, transparent, authentic experience. And so I work one-on-one with sellers at blacklabeladvisor.com. And if you want to just shoot me an email, you can use the contact form or email me at johnelder@blacklabeladvisor.com. But it's really just a different experience. A lot of agencies out there for consulting, will have a huge team of employees that are working with you that really don't have Amazon experience. So when I work with my clients, I'm sharing all my knowledge from my experience with, running my business for 5 years and selling for a mid-7-figure exit. So it's been a real joy just to work with clients, both veteran sellers and new sellers, and just helping people, not make some of the mistakes I made.
Yep, and that's why we have SellerSpeak sessions to understand from the mistakes that the sellers have made, and we learn as a group collectively. So thank you so much for joining the session, John. If you like this video, make sure to like the like button. If you didn't subscribe to our channel already, do subscribe and hit that bell icon so you get notified for every video that we post. And join the SellerApp community and check out our free tools and let us help scale your Amazon journey. So I will see you next week in another SellerSpeak session. So goodbye for now.